Welcome to another episode of News Buzz from Twice Told Tales. Today we're going to talk about the case of prisoner swap, a Danish citizen who was arrested in Iran during the 2022 protests, and he was kept in prison for 7 months. And he was just recently released in a prisoner swap brokered by Oman between Iran and Belgium. So the interesting thing about this Danish citizen, Thomas Kjym, is that after he was released and as soon as he arrived in the airport in Copenhagen in Denmark, there was a press conference where he talked about his experience being in Iranian prisons. And unlike what people might imagine of what the Iranian prisons are like and how people are treated there, this guy said that he was treated like a guest and that he was treated insanely well, to quote what exactly he said. The video
is on video, so maybe we can insert that in. Yeah,
exactly. The video is already available on our Telegram channel, but I'm going to include it here so that people can watch.
Hej. Jamen det er jo surrealistisk, ikke? Fuldstændig surrealistisk. I går der kunne jeg stadig ikke rigtig forstå det. Det var lidt mere forståeligt i dag, da jeg så Danmark ud af ruden i flyveren. Men det er selvfølgelig enormt rart at kunne se sin mor og far igen. Men jeg bliver nødt til at sige fra starten af, at iranerne har ikke gjort andet end at behandle mig sindssygt godt. Med en meget, meget stor gæstfrihed. Og de var, som man læser og hører om på nettet. Jeg blev behandlet som en gæst, kan man sige, i Iran. Der har ikke været noget fysisk tortur eller noget som helst.
But let's compare that with the way other prisoners around the world or foreign prisoners are treated, like Julian Assange, or the case of the Chilean American journalist in Ukraine. Yeah, Gonzalo Lira. So what do we know about that? Like their case, of course, it's like the severity of the case is different, but still the way he has been treated in prison is, I think it's impressive that the way he has been talking about how he was treated in Iranian prisons. So, yep, I think that's about it. Do you have any?
Well, I mean, with Julian Assange, he's an Australian. He's been held de facto by the U.S. and in Britain, and they keep coming up with new charges. He's not really held there by anything but like paper thin allegations. He's a publisher, so he wasn't doing anything wrong. So they just have a grudge against him, and they're trying to torture him in solitary confinement. They've had him in, his whole story. If you look at it from a unbiased viewpoint, it's really disgusting how they've treated him. And yeah, so that's one example. And then this guy, this Thomas Danish guy, he was just doing basically journalism of the protests, and I guess he was filming something sensitive, and the Iranian government didn't appreciate it. So it's almost very relatable to what Julian Assange was doing, and you can see the treatment difference. I don't think Julian Assange would come out and say that he felt he was treated insanely well by the British or the American government. So by the American government via the British, really. So the other example is Gonzalo Lira, which is interesting. I mean, he was arrested and has disappeared basically without no one's heard anything from him for about 30 days. 4 days after criticizing the Hunter Biden really openly in a tweet. And if you know anything about Hunter Biden and the Ukrainians, you know that there's a strong tie there. So it's likely that he's being held by the de facto by the U.S. in Ukrainian hands for for insulting the Biden family, and he, the U.S. government. He's a U.S. citizen. You said Chilean, but he's actually a U.S. citizen. In this case, that's primarily the important citizenship, because the U.S. First of all, the U.S. funds the Ukrainian government, so the Ukrainian government should do whatever the U.S. is asking, because the open funding of they pay the pensions of the Ukrainian government when school teachers in LA can't get their pensions paid. So they're prioritizing Ukrainian government officials over our own, American citizens. So the Ukrainian government should respond. And if you're a U.S. citizen, let's say you're in, I don't know, Timbuktu, and you get arrested, the embassy in Timbuktu should go and look into your case and provide feedback to your family. And they have a right. I mean, they have a duty to do that. And they are refusing to provide any information, even though they have full access to it. They can go and they can get whatever they need to get out of the Ukrainian government. But they're refusing to do that. So it leads more credence to the fact that, or to the idea that this is a de facto detention for the U.S. government by the Ukrainians, and they're just doing it in a law.
Yeah, I said, yeah, I said he's Chilean American because I remember because it wasn't the first time that he disappeared. Like there was also another time that he disappeared, and everyone was very worried about him. And then he came back and said that he was okay, but everyone was concerned about his well-being. And I remember at that time, because the U.S. government was not taking any action, people were. Like his friends and like maybe people that just were fans or were following his case were asking the Chilean government to take actions and save him, because the U.S. government was totally ignoring him. Yeah, this is while he is a U.S. citizen and he's living there and everything. But so that's like you said, it's like the U.S. government is totally ignoring his case, and it could be just on behalf of them because he was questioning and challenging the U.S. narrative of the crisis in Ukraine. So it was the U.S. government definitely doesn't like that.
Yeah, and like I heard his father interviewed on Kim Iverson's show last night, and he made a good point. Like when Gonzalo was detained the first time and the second time, his narrative, his outspokenness about the Ukrainian government never changed. So
exactly,
there's no reason to arrest him. I mean, he didn't. But what changed is his vitriol against the U.S. government and the Biden family, and then that's when he got arrested. So, so anyway, it's, let's say, who cares why he got arrested? The U.S. government's doing nothing to help him out, and they should be. And in this case, the Iranian government is being praised by a person that they had detained for the amount of. I mean, that means he must have been taken care of really well. I was trying to think when I saw that video of this Danish kid getting released. I was like, what would, if I was being held for 7 months by a government, away from my family and away from whatever,
and not knowing what is going to happen to you.
Yeah, not knowing what's going to happen. And in order to get me to say openly praiseful things, like to keep my mouth shut and just be quiet and be like, I'm glad to be back home, that's fine. But for me to be like, I'm glad to be back home and those guys are awesome, that they really have to do good things. I was like, what were they doing to this guy to make him so happy? Because like I don't know.
And he uses very strong words to say that.
Yeah,
it's not like I was treated okay. Insanely well. Yes, I was treated like a guest. Insanely well.
For 7 months, I don't care. Like for a week, for 2 weeks, I could get that. Maybe I would be. But after like the first 3 months, I'd be like, all right, just send me home. I'm sick of this. And then I would be like, I would develop some animosity. I'd be like, I don't care how good your food is. Like, it would be really hard for me to get.
I know.
After 7 months to the stage where I'm willing to openly, like in the first interview, say how well I was treated. That is just a very strange level of. I mean, I would love to know how he was treated, because it obviously was very important for him, and it made it so that was one of the first things he wanted to say is how grateful he was to his captors for taking good care of him.
Yeah, yeah. He actually also said that it felt like surreal because he didn't know when he would be like that he was back with his family and in his country. Like he was very happy about that. So it's definitely been a very stressful time. And he's a
Wow.
YouTuber, and he's a couch surfer and a YouTuber, so people can maybe check out his videos. I think the last video was eight months ago, or just maybe before he arrives in Iran. And it looks like I mean, to be very optimistic about the whole thing, it looks like he was at the side of a protest or a riot, and that's how he was arrested. So, yeah, I mean, that's what the most of the news outlets are saying. So, yeah, he was arrested on the sidelines of the protest.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see any reason not to believe that that it was just a genuine. I don't know. There were a lot of non-Iranian participants from European countries in those protests, so it probably posed a bit of a concern as to what position was on, because Denmark is definitely not an anti-imperialist nation. So what sort of video footage was he collecting, and how was it going to be used to report? Because perception was the main thing during those protests, because they weren't very big and they weren't very significant. And so if you get the right footage, the right angle, you can make it look like they are, just like the classic footage of the people tearing the statue of Saddam down in Iraq, where the U.S. government was like, look how many people are cheering. And then there's this one guy got the footage from behind where you could see it was totally fake, and there was just like 20 people in front of it. It's the same idea. That perception is what's important. And so the CIA and the intelligence community were working really hard to craft this narrative of massive outrage, and the Iranian government covering things up. The Iranian government would have been very sensitive to foreigners going in there and collecting footage. So I totally
or he might have not been even collecting any footage, but the fact that he was, because like he said, it was the protest back in October and November were not significant. So if you happen to be on the side of a protest and around the protester, it is very easy to think that you were planning to take part in that protest and be around that, because it's not like you're just walking somewhere. Yeah. So it was a very sensitive time and a very sensitive place, and maybe if he wasn't even doing anything, which I would imagine that I would be tempted to want to take pictures, and at a time when there was massive anti-Iran propaganda, and because we know about all the spies that have come inside Iran and all the MEK affiliates and all the things that happen, it's a very complicated situation here when there are protests. It's not like only civilians coming out. There are always people who want to, implement the plots that from an imperialist plots, or pursue U.S. goals, or Israeli Israel's goals or plans here. So it's very sensitive. It's not it's a different situation than, for example, some protest in France. But I'm sure if I was maybe just with the protesters in another country, and they found out that I was an Iranian, and filming and everything, they would become very sensitive about it too.
Yeah, well, you can imagine from this guy's perspective, he knows he's innocent or whatever, how that would make him feel, being arrested for a long time, having proclaimed his innocence or whatever, and then at the end, after 7 months, still saying, yeah, they treated me so well. I mean, it sounded like, listening to that guy, that I was feeling like if I talked to him in a month, he would say, yeah, I miss being in Iran. I miss.
The way he describes it. Yeah, that's true.
So it's wow, really unbelievable, amount of, I don't know, just how the level of difference in how Iran treats its prisoners is really, especially foreign prisoners, or doing things that
Yeah.
the U.S. is just torturing people for is pretty amazing. All right, well, thanks for joining us for another episode of News Bud. We'll see you again next time. Check out our Telegram channel and join our Substack and support our work.